Hello everyone, it's been a while since I've created a video and I wanted to create one as we segue from poetry into drama. And we have discussed fiction, which is our more long-form type of literature that we read. Probably more of us read fiction than the other two versions. Moving on to poetry, which is much more concise and a little bit more subjective, a little bit harder to work ourselves around. And then now we're moving on to drama, whose ultimate goal is to be performed on a stage. And because it is drama, there are some distinct components of it that I wanted to touch on in this video today. So, as I mentioned, the notion of drama is that it is public fiction. It is meant to be heard and seen in a live audience. There is, because of that, sort of a mood of spectacularness or of overly dramaticness that comes with drama, and it is one of the oldest forms of communal entertainment that we have. If you've ever seen Shakespeare in the Park or witnessed one of the plays that some of our local community theaters do, you will be familiar with the intricacies of what it feels like to go to a live performance. And just like if you have a favorite singer or band, seeing them live is usually the best way to see them. You get to feel the energy of the crowd, you get to hear how they laugh or don't laugh, how loud the applause is. Sometimes the characters on stage will feed off of that or interact a little bit with the audience. And then you have, of course, the sound and the lighting and the props and the stage, and all of that calls for careful thought and preparation. If you think about plays, they are productions that, on Broadway anyway, occur several times a week, sometimes multiple times a day, and they involve the costuming. So what does my character, how do they dress? That involves the sets. So is it a living room situation? Do I change where it's located, which often involves dollies and wheels and moving things around? Lighting is important. Having the lights illuminate the characters who are speaking and dim the people who are receding into the background. Sound, making sure that everybody in the audience can hear and hear clearly. Special effects, so if you have seen programs where they show plays from olden times and they have those crank machines in the back making the thunder sounds and the lightning sounds, we still use stuff like that today, but it's mostly computerized or digitized. And then cues that you're getting from the director. I've been to plays before where you can see the tape on the floor if you sit close enough where the actors are supposed to stand and stop to deliver a certain line. And usually their preparation involves them knowing where they need to be and how they need to move, and if there are set changes, when, where, and how they go about moving those. Minimize my little pop-up notifications here. So as you are reading drama, think about yourself as the director. Think about how you would stage it. When you read about characters, who do you envision? How do they speak and walk, and how do they dress? How do they interact with each other? One of the things about being a director is you get to decide the manner in which a character delivers a line. So in that regard, depending on the director, the interpretation can be quite different. That's where we're still seeing current representations of Shakespeare plays, and they are quite different probably than they were performed during Shakespeare's time. Think about how the stage is set up. In the early days of playmaking, it was an outdoor theater that people surrounded, and women were not allowed to act. Women who acted would have been pretty much the equivalent of a prostitute or a whore, so it was all men dressing up as women. And again, you will see movies to this day of men playing women in Shakespeare plays, and the folly that is involved in that, and kind of the hyper femininity that they display to almost the point of ridicule. Some of the best known theaters would be those by Shakespeare. He is known for creating the Globe Theater, where you were surrounded on three sides by your audience members, and the audience members had a pretty critical role to play. There was a lot more interaction. There was a lot more liveliness to it, and if the play wasn't going the way that the audience wanted it to, that also sometimes meant that there was throwing things and interacting and yelling during the play. Most plays that I go to now are pretty subdued. There's not a lot of yelling from the audience, but more and more I have gone and people make a really strident announcement about avoiding the use of cell phones and not recording so as not to distract audience members. The modern box stage is a little bit more removed from the audience. You are usually looking up at a stage, imagine like you would a high school gymnasium, and the audience is seated down below and they're not surrounding the stage. So it also benefits from more advanced technology as far as being able to see and hear it. The elements of drama obviously involve the characters who play the actors who play the characters in the play. You have the notion of dramatic irony, and you have the plot and the conflict, and I'll talk a little bit more about each of those in a little more detail. So, unlike fiction where you get to know some of the backstory of a character, plays we learn about characters through watching them and hearing them. So we often don't get the benefit of knowing history prior to what happens on stage unless a person comes out and talks to the audience beforehand. You do have some instances in plays of soliloquies where a character will turn to the audience and deliver a monologue. You also see some of this in more modern day features. The Sopranos and House of Cards are two programs that I know that have broken the fourth wall and talked to the audience, but Ryan Reynolds does it in the Deadpool movies, making allusions to the marketing and the appeal of the movie as he's in the movie. Your characters are often broken down into full and flatter characters. Your full characters are the ones we get to spend the most time with, the ones we know most about. There's usually a protagonist, someone that we root for, kind of known as the good guy or the good gal. And then you have the antagonist, the person who can be considered the bad guy or the person who is in conflict with the protagonist. Both are rounded, and we grow to learn more about them as the play progresses. The minor characters are smaller characters in the play are known as flat because we often don't know much about them. There's not as much delivery of lines by them, and they usually serve a purpose in the plot, or they might serve as comic relief, but they are not the central focus of the play. The notion of dramatic irony is that we are able to know more about characters and their situations than they do on stage. So we might be privy to certain scenes that we get to see that the antagonist does not get to see. And so we are sitting in the audience going, oh no, he shouldn't go in there because so-and-so is hiding. So we get to see as audience members all of the action on stage, whereas certain characters appear and disappear throughout the play. In any kind of fiction or drama, you need a conflict, and a conflict is a matter of something happening that needs to be overcome. It can be as simple as an internal conflict, so I am struggling to make a decision, I am sad, I'm depressed, I have to get over that. It could be a matter of a personal conflict, so two people disagree about something, whether that's vocally or physically, and it could be a matter of somebody battling nature, so you are snowed in or rained in, or there's a hurricane coming. So you can have one type of conflict, or you can have all in a play. And remember that we have to have conflict in order to stay interested as human beings. We are drawn to things that involve conflict, even if we might not like to admit it. That's how we learn, that's how we empathize. The plot is what happens in the entire story or the play. We get some exposition, so maybe some background. We figure out whether by watching or being told when and where it takes place. You are introduced to characters, you're introduced to their conflicts, and then there is a moment in the drama where everything hinges on the big conflict being resolved. This is the moment of climax. So there's usually some kind of altercation or interaction that culminates in this moment of tension being released. The falling action happens after that climax, so tensions start to ease and we start to feel a little bit like things are resolving themselves. And then in the end, we are often left with some kind of feeling of at least finality, if not satisfaction. As you begin to explore the dramas that we're reading for class, think about some of these things when the play is set, so the actual physical location and the year or time period in which it's set. How we learn about the characters, again, how they talk, how they walk, how they dress, who the characters are in relationship to each other. Oftentimes in plays, when you get the playbill, there will be a short summary of who the characters are and sometimes what their relationship is to each other. I find that pretty important when I'm attending an actual live play to pay attention to. Think about what the main conflict is, and again, what the context is. Is this a play that was created in relation to something that happened in the world? Is this a play created by a playwright because they are working out something that they have a hard time overcoming in their childhood? If you can find that information out, great. Look at the set, look at the lighting and the sound, and think about how the play ends. And then finally, has the play been made into a film? Oftentimes the really great plays, as the one that we are looking at for this class, Fences, has been made into a film. So the best way to evaluate drama is, after we've read it, to watch it, and even to read it while we're watching it. As relating to Shakespeare, Shakespeare is one that I usually do have students read and we analyze. We are not doing Shakespeare this year, but it's one that really does come to life based on the way it's performed versus the way it's read, and I think that's true of most pieces of drama. So sometimes the images that you had in your mind as you created characters when you read it will not match, and then that therefore will change your interpretation of the play. But go along with it. This is the director's choice, the producer's choice in how to convey those characters in the plot, and see how your opinion changes as you watch it versus when you read it. All right, that's a quick and dirty overview of drama. We are reading at least 2 plays, one a short one named Trifles by a female playwright from the 20s named Susan Glaspell. It's based on a real-life murder that happened in Iowa. And then the longer one we're reading is called Fences by August Wilson, and he won a Pulitzer for this piece, and it has been made into a film from, I believe, 2016 with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. So we will read that and then watch it. But I hope you enjoy what we have coming up, and if you have questions about anything, as always, please let me know via email, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts about the plays that we're reading. Thanks.